From where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe, you are listening to Talk in the Night. I'm your host, Paranormal Phil, and later on in the show tonight, we're going to talk with my guest, Leisha West, as we talk about financial services for veterans, veteran business owners, and leadership as a female veteran and leadership in general in the community. But first, up on the Talk of the Night website under the story of the day, GI Bill benefit delayed for thousands due to glitch VA knew about months ago. Thousands of veterans attending college thanks to the GI Bill have had their housing allowance delayed or go missing altogether, according to an NBC News report published on Veterans Day. As of November 8, more than 82,000 veterans were waiting for their housing payment with only weeks left in the current school session, and many more were believed to have been impacted, NBC News reports. When the Forever GI Bill was signed into law in 2017, the legislation greatly expanded benefits for veterans and their families, but it also required that the Department of Veteran Affairs change how housing allowance would be calculated. Previously, housing payments were calculated based on the location of the college's main campus. The Forever GI Bill calls the allowance to be calculated based on where the classes are attended, according to Stars and Stripes. Now, of course, you can read more up on that on the Talk of the Night website at talkofthenight.weebly.com. And, of course, like with me, I waited too long. I tried to go to college 20 years after I got out of the service. And back when I tried it, it was... you had to use it within 12 years. Now, of course, nowadays you can use that GI Bill past that time. But, of course, with so much with the VA and all the stuff that goes on, I wouldn't be surprised if they would mess up something like this. But we're going to talk about the whole financial services for veterans that might be struggling like with the GI Bill and everything like that with my guest, Leisha West. So please welcome to the show, Leisha.
I feel glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show. So tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I own a financial services and insurance agency where we do financial services for primarily retirees, those 50 and older that are planning and getting closer to retirement. We do a lot of the Medicare, Social Security consultation. You're looking at the long-term care distribution strategies, and also a lot of the asset protection and estate planning. And so a lot of that goes hand in hand with a lot of veteran services and veterans benefits that most veterans aren't aware of.
All right. And, of course, we're going to get into that in a moment. But you mentioned that you were in the Marine Corps. Tell the listeners a little bit about your time in the service if you want to.
I just love the Marine Corps. I went in, and this was in 1998. So I was the honor graduate at a boot camp, and from there I went to the decon unit, and then I went over to be a weapons instructor for Marine combat training. So that was a great time. I loved the camaraderie. It was a great time. It certainly changes you. It changes your perception, and of course, it makes you a better leader and a better person as far as personal growth and development. So I think everybody should go to the military, but that's just me.
Yeah, I know, like me, you went in 98. I was getting out in 98, but No, I found that a lot of the stuff that I learned in the military, the discipline, the attention to detail, and everything like that, has carried over into my civilian life. And people that have never served have a tough time understanding somebody like me because I'm a go-getter even with my disability right now. I'm still that kind of go-getter that wants to get the job done. I'll give you an example. I was working for a small amusement park out in California before I moved here to Texas. And people, even though I was in the Navy, people would call me the drill sergeant because I was always using that tone of voice with the kids when they would run or act up. It's like, get down from there or walk, please. I mean, I would use that loud, firm voice, but not yelling. So I always got that. People, the young kids that I worked with, they're like, man, Phil's the drill sergeant here.
They never had any discipline before till you came along, huh?
Yeah, and of course I found out that find that a lot of people after my time in the service that the people that are in management that I worked the jobs for, they seemed like they were afraid that I was going to take their job because I was more of that go-getter, the one that wanted to get it done. And it's like, I'm not here to take your job. I'm here to do my job.
Well, I think the other part to that is that you hold them accountable, so the better you are at your job, it makes them look bad if they're not stepping up and they're not up-leveling their game.
Yeah, because, I mean, the way I see, like, there's two types of people head of, like, jobs and stuff like that. There's a boss and there's a leader. The boss is going to sit back and tell everybody what to do. The leader's going to work alongside everybody and make everybody work harder because if that leader's working hard, the other people are going to be like, okay, he's working hard. Let's work along with him, make his job easier and stuff like that. And that's the kind of person I am, that leader of to show people that if I'm going to be leading a group, I'm going to be working just as hard as the people underneath me because that's going to make them work harder.
Well, you would think it would work that way. If everybody went to the military, then everybody would know how to work as a team.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into your about your website. Now, what is West Financial Group, Inc., and what is the mission statement of your company?
Well, our mission statement is primarily we would like to ideally set everybody up so they can age in the comfort of their home rather than have to go to the nursing home or have a choice to do so. We like to minimize the tax consequences and also to fulfill everybody's wishes depending on how they want their assets and they want their legacy to pass down to, of course, their heirs and whomever they choose, whether that be a charity or what have you. And if the planning is done well in advance, there's no reason that working with good, competent, experienced planners like my team, that we can't make all of that happen. But it does take a team effort, and you really do have to start earlier than later.
Yeah, and I know there are, like me, I'm starting late. I should have planned a lot sooner in life because I'm creeping up on 50 years old. Well, about 5 years away from it, but still creeping up on it. And I really never planned for the future. I was always here, there, back and forth and everything like that, never really planning. So I kind of got a late start in getting things trying to work out. But what about what can you do for people like that do get a late start in planning for retirement and everything like that?
Well, it's a challenge. I'll tell you that. It's a challenge. But we can work around that. A lot of it depends on their health. A lot of it depends on their financial situation at the time and what plans that they had put in place prior to meeting with a retirement planning team like mine. So it really depends. It's definitely case by case, depending on where their situation is. But of course, a lot of things can be done. There's a lot of benefits out there that people don't know that they are entitled to. So it really is a case by case basis. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. How many times have they been married? You know, what was their work history? This kind of thing. So once we kind of look at it and put it all together, then we can kind of structure a plan and start back planning for what the ideal result would be.
Yeah, because I know, like me, I'm like 30% disabled, but I'm trying to get that increased because I've had plenty of health issues the past few years, and it just keeps getting worse. But I've been fighting the VA on that. But that's why I love doing this radio show, because I can sit here. I don't have to struggle standing long hours. And also, if I get it really going good, I can make a good amount for a living to where I can plan better for my retirement and everything like that.
And I think it's one thing that you brought up is that you already have a disability or what have you, and you're appealing it. You know, Phil, a lot of veterans don't know that they can appeal the rating that they have. So many of them don't even know that. They think that they just get what they get, and that's it. And of course, every bit of that can go up for appeal. Like you had mentioned that, you know, you have some health issues that are increasing, or that you feel that your health is declining. You better believe that every bit of that should go up for appeal. It's kind of like when you go to apply for a job, they're going to give you the entry-level pay first. They're not going to give you the highest amount. They're not going to start you out in the middle. Whatever that pay scale is, they're going to start you out on the bottom, and then it's up to you to negotiate and to prove yourself, or to show your qualities, or show that you would be worthy of more pay, and then you negotiate your salary. It's kind of like that. They're going to start you out at the lowest disability increments that they can get away with until you start appealing it and you show more evidence and more documentation that you are worthy of a higher rating. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because any veterans that are listening, you absolutely are eligible to appeal any of the ratings that you've been given.
Yeah, and of course, I've been trying to appeal it, but without new evidence, or at least I didn't before I moved here to Texas, because my VA doctor out in California never really got with me, found out what was going on, and put that into my VA records, and just trying to get the VA to increase it off of what was already there. They're not going to do it. So when I moved here to Fort Worth, I actually got a doctor that went more in depth with each patient she had, and she's got me going through MRIs, nerve studies now, all this kind of stuff to get this all documented in my records, so that I can get that increase, whereas I didn't get that kind of care out in California. But of course,
wow.
you gotta get a good doctor. You have to talk to the doctor and tell them what's going on, because if you don't tell them, they're not going to know.
That's true. That's true.
But then again, like I said earlier, that some doctors just don't seem to care. So tell us about the process that you go, because I'm looking about us on your website and our process, and the different phases like discovery, strategy, implementation. If I can talk, implementation and monitoring.
Okay, so when we first do our meet and greet, and we go through and find out if we're fit to work with each other, if we can get past that phase and we both agree that it makes sense for us to continue and work towards the overall plan in the long term, then we go through our discovery phase. And that is what we would call an intake, where we go through, we ask tons and tons of questions and get all up close and personal with you and go through your finances, your health situation, and ultimately what your future goals are, what would your ideal result be. And if we feel that we can come close to achieving that goal, or we can help you get close to your desired result, and we can move forward, then we go out of the discovery phase. And a lot of times we can't help people if they have an unrealistic goal. Like you said, maybe they started a little bit too late and they want to retire with X amount of money or have a goal that we simply can't reach, then I would rather not help you fail. So there's a lot of clients that we don't take on because I know that I can't meet their goals, and I'm not going to be able to deliver the result that they want, and they're not going to be happy with me. And so once we get through the discovery process, then we go into the strategizing. So that's when we start looking at all the benefits that we know we can get, that people are entitled to, that they may not know about. And then we can start strategizing as far as what their taxes are going to look like and different strategies to mitigate their taxes and to reduce their risk. And then also a lot of asset protection. Do they have trust in place? You know, you don't want to have a will because that's a golden ticket to probate court. You know, everyone says that you should die, you should have a will and this and that. I don't agree with that. Once you have a will, you're going straight to probate court, and I don't think your family would appreciate that. Anyhow, once we get through the strategizing, then we put in all of their asset protection that we can, whether that be a corporate entity or a trust or a web of corporate entities, depending on their situation. And then we start plugging in the plan. So then that's when we move into the implementation part, and we start implementing, whether that's moving money, applying for insurance policies, hatching out the trust and getting all that worked out. Then once we have our plan in place, then the last phase is we sit back and we monitor. So that means we're monitoring investments. We have biannual reviews. Sometimes we just do annual reviews. It depends, and then certainly we keep in touch with our clients all throughout the year. So if anything happens, if there's a divorce, if a new grandbaby comes, or there's any changes that they want to any of their plans, then we can make those happen very quickly. A lot of times I will see that people may have met with an insurance agent or they met with an advisor, and it was a long, long time ago, and so many things have changed. Either their advisor didn't keep in touch with them, or they didn't keep in touch with their advisor, and then the next thing you know, you have a deceased spouse that is still listed as a beneficiary. You may have gotten a divorce, and your ex is listed as a beneficiary. But you'll see all these different situations where their whole life changed, but their financials were not updated. So it's very important, if you're working with an insurance agent or you're working with an advisor, whoever you're working with, this is a long-term relationship. This isn't a transaction where we set it and forget it and have a nice day, because your life is still going to change and your health may change. So if they're adding prescriptions or whatever your situation is, then your financials need to be updated, and whoever you're working with also needs to be kept in the loop with what's going on with your life and this and that, because that could change everything, especially if something happens to where you become incompetent, or you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to make decisions for yourself. Well, your financial person needs to know who is your power of attorney, all these things. So if you're not keeping in touch, which I would blame the agent and the financial advisor, because you want to stay in touch with your client to make sure they always have the most updated information, whether that means you keep them up to date with new benefits that they may be eligible for, any regulatory changes, any legislative updates. Like, it's your job to keep your clients informed of that. They've hired you to do that. And so in a lot of these situations, in the monitoring, that's what that's for. So, in a lot of ways, you become an extension of the family, because you know where all the bones are buried, you know your health, you know their finances, you know their final wishes, you know all of that. And with you being interested in that information, you have to continue monitoring. So to answer your question, that is our 4 phases when we accept and we onboard our new clients. And that has worked very, very well for us.
All right. And so what is some of the services that you offer at West Financial Group?
Well, we're a full-service retirement planning and insurance and asset protection firm. So what that looks like as far as the retirement side of the house, I had mentioned Medicare and Social Security before. Those are pretty much consultations. We do the Medicare supplements and Medicare Advantage plans if they're appropriate. And those are coupled with the veteran benefits. If you have veterans that are using the VA for health care, then we go into the Social Security, and that is primarily a consultative service because a lot of things hinge on Social Security. There's over 8,000 different strategies on how to maximize your Social Security benefits. So it just depends, and that is a huge consultation. So that depends on if you're married, if you're divorced, again, your work history. And then the big question is, when do people take Social Security? That comes up in every household, every situation. We don't know when to take it. And so the Social Security is a huge cornerstone of the entire financial plan because a lot of people, that is their only income in retirement, especially if they started later, if they blew a 401k. A lot of people don't have pensions anymore. So a lot of folks are strictly dependent on those Social Security checks. And Phil, you only have one chance to get it right. You've got one time to get it right, because once you sign up and once you enroll and once you start taking it, then it's very difficult, to try to go back and make changes and fool around with that. So it's very important that you get the Social Security done right, and we'll strategize with that. So then we look at all the investments, and then we start looking at the taxes. We start looking at different distribution strategies, and then of course their health. What are they set up for long-term care? So when you age, we're looking at 70s, 80s, 90s, and you don't have a lot of practitioners like me that work with that demographic or that are trained or well-versed. And what does that look like? Because that is where the problems and all the questions are going to come from. So a lot of people don't work with that demographic, so we try to set people up as best we can according to their wishes. Some people are okay with going to a nursing home. Some people are okay with that. Other people are hell-bent not to go. So these are all the different issues in the area of retirement planning that people have to look at. And most financial advisors are not trained, and they're not educated, and they're not qualified to advise on the issues that retirees in retirement have to deal with. And, of course, you have a lot of people that don't have life insurance yet, so there's a lot of final expense that we place and this kind of thing. So that's kind of what the retirement picture looks like. That's kind of an overview. Of course, there's a lot of subcategories to those. But then when you get into insurance, you're looking at annuities, obviously life insurance, probably not too much health insurance at that phase. Most everyone has Medicare. The other issue is that sometimes if you have a spouse that's much younger, then they're younger than 65 and they're not on Medicare yet. So you will have to have some health insurance placement as far as health care independently, because usually the older spouse has already retired and there's no longer an employer plan available. So then we get into, so there's a lot going on in that insurance house, if you will, and then asset protection. Like I said, you're getting into trust, you're getting into corporate entities and this kind of thing on how you're actually going to protect your assets, and that would be from creditors, lawsuits, anything like that. So you have to put the whole plan all together, just like one big puzzle piece, so that everything works like it should.
Yeah, because I know, like, my parents didn't like going to my dad never went to a nursing home. My mom did for off and on because of health issues, but as far as where she wanted to be at home like my dad and everything like that. But they were constantly living off of the Social Security and everything like that. Like my dad had to use his 401k. They ended up doing a reverse mortgage on their house just to help make ends meet and do some repairs on the house. And, of course, they never really planned for anything in their upper age and everything like that before they passed away. Like, my dad's been gone almost 10 years. My mom's been gone about 5 years. But they never really planned for what would happen after they're gone for, like, me or my sister. But a lot of things that I learned growing up, because my dad grew up in the middle of the Great Depression back in the 30s in West Texas, small little town of Ballinger and everything like that. But he grew up having to go to work at quitting school at 8th grade just to go to work to help his family. So it was always learn as you go and not really planning everything like that. So I kind of, when I got into adulthood, I kind of took over that mentality of, well, it'll work itself out in the end, instead of taking my younger years and planning for the future.
Well, I see that a lot. I see that a whole lot, that people don't plan. But I guess I would go back to say, even when you do start to plan or think you want to plan, there's not a lot of practitioners like me that are actually retirement planners. So a lot of these folks don't have the resources or the individuals to go to sit down and talk about, what does this look like in my 80s? So I would say there's a huge gap as far as getting the information and the resources out to folks that want to start planning, whether that be earlier or later. There's just not a lot of information and resources there, and what happens is just like you just hold your breath and hope for the best, and you and I both know hope is not a plan. So as these things kind of creep up on you, then people just kind of, take it as they go and take it one step at a time, and a lot of times it's too late.
And of course we'll get into that after the commercial break, but we are at the commercial break. But we'll be back talking more about financial services after we come back from this commercial break. We'll be right back.
Someday I will lose my mind. They're always wondering why is a waste of time. I am trying to figure why in my heart I still feel fire. Anything that has been done to fix it, or why it takes so long. Why it takes
Are you a ghost hunter or paranormal enthusiast and need equipment to go out and investigate locations that have spirit activity? Well, GhostStop.com has all the equipment that you will need. They have a Boo Buddy ghost hunting kit for $169.95, or how about a Keep Calm and Ghost Hunt t-shirt for $19.95. Click on the banner ad at the top of the Talking Tonight website and get shopping today. GhostStop.com, your one-stop shop for all your ghost hunting needs. Do you have a paranormal team? Are you a small-time author? Do you have a radio show that you would like to promote? Is there anything that you would like to get the word out there about but don't have a big budget? Well, Talking Tonight has an opportunity for you to sponsor the show without breaking your wallet. Contact the show at talkingtonight@outlook.com or on the show's website or Facebook page for more details. Do you think you have a haunted or cursed object? Well, Nicole Gaspard does, and in her book Haunted Vessels and Cursed Objects, she talks about her continued paranormal and supernatural ghost encounters, haunted dolls, and other items that are supposed to be haunted or cursed. Pick up your copy today on Amazon.com.
Just another day on the front line, forced to apologize. Being who I am, but you better run. I'm standing back, all this wasted time, feeling like a landmine. You know where I can run, I'm feeling dangerous. I've been hit with the switch, I'm just swallowing your cyanide. Something's now, watch your step, now I'm ready to ignite. Maybe I'm a misfit, maybe I'm a no one. Push me to the dirt, you're the one you always spit on. I am not worthless, I don't deserve that. Now I will not take this, won't be faceless, now it's time to say it. You better bite your tongue, I'm about to come undone. Now my moment here, I'm not the only.
Okay, and we are back with my guest, Leisha West, as we talk about financial services and everything like that. Now, what I was going to ask, but we got into the commercial break, was we were talking about, I'm just a brain fart here, but we were talking about the planning and everything like that, and some people getting late start on planning. But what is the best time to start planning?
Boy, I wish I had $10 for every time I had that question. I really don't think there is an age to that. You can have your parents put a life insurance policy on you when you're 9 months old. I don't think you can never ever, you should ever not be not planning. You should ever not be planning. That's just my humble opinion. You never know. And even though you may be looking at, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I worked with retirees in the older generation, you never know when your number's up. Car accidents, you have, California's all on fire right now. I didn't even see what their body count was today. But you never know when you're going to be in a situation. You should always have your plan in place, especially if you have a family and loved ones. If you care about what your legacy is, you should always have a plan in place. So that's such a good question. I can't put an age on it. Like, there's never a time to start. You should always have a plan in place, and it's not a matter of just in case. I never met anybody that got out of this life alive. So, it's a matter of when, not if. So, in my opinion, everybody should always have a plan. Everybody should always have their affairs in order. It's just a matter of when God's ready.
Yeah, because, there are people that die at a very early age.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And stuff like that. So they never even get to the retirement age or anything like that. Or they're just people that get to that retirement age, and they're like, now what did I do? And they never really planned. And then, of course, they get ill, they end up passing away or something like that. So, I mean, planning is a good thing. And I've always been the kind, like I said, the kind that likes to fly by the seat of my pants, just get out there and do it. But and it's worked for me so far. But I know there's going to come a time when I can't do that no more, and it's getting close to that point where, as far as like my mobility is not what it used to be. I mean, back in my Navy days, when I first got on board or got stationed to my ship and everything like that, we had to do the physical training thing. And of course, I was lean, I was muscular and everything like that. Not built like a bodybuilder, but I was well built and everything like that and in shape. And of course, I could run 1.5 miles and 10 flat while smoking a cigarette, which surprised people because I started out sprinting off of that while having a cigarette in my mouth. And they're like, you're going to die after the first quarter of a mile. No, there was only one person that beat me, and he was in a little bit better shape than me.
Oh, my gosh.
And like I said, I started out sprinting and with a cigarette in my mouth. But, of course, nowadays I can't do that because of my mobility and everything like that. And now, talking about retirement, like, say somebody like myself that hasn't planned anything yet, but that person's getting to like the point where I'm at, where it's getting tougher to move around, try to have a job, to pay bills and stuff like that. Are there plans that you work with, like people like that, to help them make a plan?
Of course. Absolutely. And in a lot of those situations, obviously, it's going to be health driven, because of where the health is now or whatever. But those plans are pretty easy and pretty quick to put in place, depending on if you have a family and what your wishes are. But, a lot of those plans always start with life insurance. That's probably the one thing I see the most is so many people don't even have life insurance. Do you know there are less Americans that have life insurance than at any time in history? You have, and I don't even know what the percentage is anymore. It changes every time I see it. But you have the least amount of Americans that have life insurance. And so, and I'm sure you've gotten GoFundMe pages. I'm sure you've, seen it in the church bulletin. You've seen different posts on social media where people are asking for a donation to help with a loved one that has passed, whether that would be with the cost of the funeral services, the cost of a headstone, because there you go. That person didn't plan ahead of time or didn't think they were going to die, and it just really leaves the family in a very, very bad situation. And Phil, can I just tell you, that is how you're going to be remembered, because now everybody has grieved over you, and then they're going to be very angry and very upset because now everybody has to pass around plate. Everybody has to go and ask for money just to try to pull all the money together to put some kind of nice service for you and give you a nice homecoming service. And now that's going to come out of everybody else's pocket because you didn't think enough of your family to have life insurance on you. And that's how, as they talk about you in the future, that's how you're always going to be remembered, is that you stuck the family with your funeral expenses. It took years to get you a headstone because people saved money and this and that. So not only do you put your family in a bad situation like that financially, you also just kind of skewed your own legacy, because that's how people are going to think about you when you're remembered down the road, is that, you left everybody with a mess.
Yeah, and of course, my parents really never had the life insurance plan and everything like that. Even though my dad was a veteran and burial was covered for the most part, there was still the cost of the casket and everything like that for my mom. And of course, me and my sister had to scrape up the money to pay what was left, what the military would not pay for it, which was, I think, about $3,500, which is cheap compared to what people in the private sector would have to pay for funeral costs and caskets and stuff like that. But
And
still,
see,
it was
you
all left
know what
up
that's
to me and my sister.
You're right. You know what that's like, because you're the one that had to come up with the money, and however long you said that was, you're still talking to it now like, yeah, by the way, that happened to me. So look at the legacy that they left. Is like, yeah, we got stuck with the bill. So people don't realize when there's a lack of planning, it goes far beyond just you not wanting to pay for some life insurance.
Yeah, and like I said, me, I mean, if I could do it, because, see, I can be buried at a national cemetery and everything like that because of my veteran services, being in the service and everything like that. But, of course, I've always had that. I'm a country boy. I'm Old West type cowboy, so I grew up with those type of values in life and everything like that. So I've always dreamt of actually saying, forget the national cemetery, just bury me out in the desert like an old cowboy. But of course, you can't do that nowadays. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, even veterans can have that trouble of leaving that legacy of passing the cost down to their children or their heirs or whatever.
So here's what I've seen happen a couple times, and I've been in that situation, is that, yeah, we know dad or grandpa or whoever that passed away was in the military. However, when they passed away, nobody knew where their military papers were. So we had to dance and hustle to get the DD-214, which is the discharge papers for people listening that don't know what that is. The DD-214 discharge papers is a lot of veterans didn't leave that for their family, or they didn't have it, so the family doesn't know where the discharge papers are to prove that the decedent was in the military. Okay, and the funeral director, you're leaving everybody to do this last minute hustle. You have to look at it this way. On average, you have 6 months to plan a wedding, and you have 6 hours to plan a funeral. Mm-hmm. That is not the time to try to scrounge up and figure out where the military papers are. Oh, they're probably going to want to be buried in a uniform. Okay, well, their uniforms most likely are not going to fit. You're not going to know what their ribbons and badges were to have their uniform with all of their service awards on there, as far as their shooting badges, rifle badges, pistol badges. That is not the time to try to put all that together for your viewing. And a lot of times, I've been in a situation where the family didn't know where any of the military papers were, and then you have all these people running around, not only trying to plan out your funeral and your last wishes, but now we're trying to get all this together so that we can have the funeral detail to come out to properly give you your 21 gun salute. And then people fought over the shell casings because those wishes and those plans have not been made. Then whoever's going to get the flags, that needs to be all situated. So when you're talking about veterans, if you do want to have the funeral detail come out and give you all of the honors, which is what you're entitled to because you earned it, and have everyone to celebrate and remember you and to commemorate you and honor you for your service and give your family those last honors, you're not doing anybody any favors by not planning that. If you don't have your DD 214, then you need to get that and have all that situation, everything planned out way ahead of time. You know, awards, uniform, all of that needs to be planned. And I see a real lack of planning, especially in the veteran community when it comes to that. So any veterans that are listening, get it together. Get all the paperwork. Get all that together. You know, I've seen a lot of funeral directors. They're pretty good about getting uniforms and things like that. Nobody likes to hustle at the last minute and try to put all that together. But, you know, my biggest message is make it easy for your family. Just make it easy for everybody. Have all those plans in place. Have all the papers ready to go. So that is a big one that I see, is that people can't find all the military papers, and that has to be given to the funeral detail, or a lot of times you're not going to get one. You're not going to get one if you. Yeah.
Of course, luckily my dad had that in order, where he had all the paperwork in a certain area, so it was easy to find and everything like that. He did plan ahead for when they did pass away, so it made it easier on me and my sister as far as getting everything done for my dad, and then of course my mom and everything like that. But it still was a struggle. But at least he did have something, somewhat of a plan in order with the paperwork. Of course, the VFW, which he was a lifetime member of, also helped with the honor guard and everything like that.
Oh, sure.
Which a lot of veterans might not know this, that even if you're not a member of like the American Legion or the VFW, if you go to them and tell them that you got a family member that's in felon health or close to death and everything like that, and he's a veteran, sometimes they will listen to that and actually give you a helping hand with getting like the color guard, the helping with some funeral arrangements and everything else.
Wow, that's a great resource.
Yeah, because like I said, they helped with the they helped even with some of the members of the VFW were part of the pallbearers for my dad and everything like that, just because he was a lifetime member. But like I said, if you go to places like the VFW, and last night I was talking with my guest, Eva Fulton, that a lot of female veterans feel that they can't go into like an all-male VFW because of like sexual trauma or something like that they had in the military. So, I mean, she's got something that helps women veteran connect, and it's just a matter of searching out those little organizations, those things that can help you with, like, when it comes time to funeral planning and everything.
Well, I think the main point is just get it done. Whether you do it on your own or you seek the help of an organization, just get those plans made.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm not saying it's fun. I'm not saying it's fun. It's definitely not fun. I've done it. My plans are in place. Now, when I got going, then I started like, okay, I want this. But to sit down and really discipline yourself and be like, okay, I'm going to sit down and plan my funeral. Like, believe me, that is not fun. It's not. So nothing to really look forward to, I suppose, depending on how you frame it. But if you think about the consequences of not doing it, I would rather just sit down and go through the pain of doing it than trying to put my family through something that I wouldn't want them to experience, especially when you know better. So whoever's listening to this, you don't have any excuse because you know better.
Yeah. Now, of course, there are people out there that got that mentality that, well, you can't take it when you're gone, but, I mean, once you're gone, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to take anything with you, but you're possibly leaving that debt or whatever onto your family. And you got to think about that. Because I know, true, you cannot take it when you go, but you got to look at what you have in place to help out your family when you do go.
Well, that's true. You can't take it with you, but if you haven't made a plan for what you would like to do with your belongings and your assets, what you are leaving behind is a big, huge family fight. What you are leaving behind is a bunch of turmoil. What you are leaving behind is you're just going to make lawyers filthy rich because everybody's going to lawyer up. They're not going to, I've said this so many times. They're going to fight it out. They're not going to figure it out. They're going to fight it out. And so, all you're doing is leaving everybody in a bad position to fight it out because you didn't make decisions. It's kind of hard to fight when you're the one that made the decision because usually there's a voice of reason or there is someone logical. There's usually a level-headed person in every family. I'm sure there's exceptions, but for the most part, you will have a level-headed individual that says, okay, this is what the wishes were, and we do. Once everybody gets over the grieving stage, then they come down to earth and realize, okay, this is what this person's wishes were, and we have to honor their wishes. You may not like it, you may not agree with it, but it's not yours. So over time, people will always come back to what did they want, what was that person's wishes. That's been my experience.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about death and everything like that, but while everybody is alive, now you talked about like the paperwork and stuff like that for veterans, or even in the civilian world, having everything together and stuff like that. What are, like, say, like myself, I get disability. Of course, I don't have any kids or any spouses. I've never been married, had kids yet. But no, as far as having some, like, say, like myself, I'm just trying to figure out how to word this, is somebody that doesn't have really much any family left. I mean, I got my sister, but she's out in California, and we're not on the best of speaking terms, but what should somebody like myself that really doesn't really have somebody there to help them with this if they got to that age where they got everything planned, but let's see, I'm just trying to figure out how to get this worded right, but have
like
everything planned.
You don't know who you want the beneficiary to be.
Yeah.
There is that. I'm single with no kids too, so I'm in that same boat. Hopefully I outlive my parents, and God willing, I outlive everybody. But is that what you meant? Like, what do you do when you don't have a beneficiary?
Yeah, like somebody that might, because there are people I know out there that will go through life and just never have anybody in their life. They become recluse and everything like that, or something like that, just because that's their lifestyle. But when they pass away, it's got to fall on somebody. I know my family, like my sister, will probably do something to help me, even though we're not on the best of speaking terms, but still, she's still family. I got other family that know me pretty well. It's just that I've always been kind of that person that is trying to get my life in order first before I am with somebody, because, of course, my parents were married for 37 years up until their death. So they spent a long time together, and that's what I'm looking for before I get to that point. But I'm getting to that age where it's getting harder and harder to do something like that. But I ain't giving up on that. But there are people that think, okay, I'm past that age where I don't think I'm going to have anybody in my life, and then they just don't have the family there. What can they do to make sure that those, like if they do plan for like life insurance with their Social Security and everything like that, how can you help somebody that wants to make sure that that gets to like maybe a charity or something like that?
Well, I would say your beneficiary doesn't always have to be a family member. It could be a friend. It could be someone that you've been close to. Maybe you have an old friend from the military. Maybe, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bloodline. It doesn't have to be a blood relative. And I would have to say, I know a lot of reclusive people, but everybody has somebody or some kind of friend or somebody or someone, or you know of a family in need, whether it's a neighbor or someone that's been good to you. I would start there first and say, okay, if you don't have family members, then who are some friends or some good people that you know that would appreciate having some of your assets or belongings? I would kind of start with that and go from there. These are all such good thought-provoking questions, Maybe you have some friends that have kids, or maybe of a low income or a downtrodden family. I'm not a big fan of charity. I am not a big fan, and I have been very vocal about that. A lot of charities, the money does not go for charitable purposes. It's going for all sorts of, it goes through all sorts of other stuff. So I'm not a big fan of charity. I'm not a big fan of giving to charity. I am a big fan of going directly to low-income people or low-income families, and you can identify those folks through the school system and through churches and things like that. But for me, I always tell my clients, don't even think about charity. Try to make sure that money is truly going for charitable purposes. And a lot of veteran organizations are also very fraudulent. There's a lot of investigations going on. I'm not a fan of the veteran organizations, again, because the money that's being donated does not necessarily go for charitable purposes or for helping veterans like the money was intended to do.
Yeah,
so I would start looking at, I would start looking at different friends, maybe their generation or people that you know of that would be grateful and that would be able to benefit. And Phil, you can give donations, or you could set that up anonymously if you wanted to do that too.
Yeah, of course, not like, I know like the DAV, and I've seen it somewhere, I just can't remember where, but a lot of the stuff that they receive from charity donations, money donated to them, everything like that goes to like office furniture, operating costs, and only like a small percentage actually goes to help the veterans. Whereas I'd rather go out and help people one-on-one rather than it going to a big charity that's going to use it for just like operating costs, office furniture, bonuses, stuff like that. It's like, that's not helping nobody.
It's not. And for goodness sakes, you've got California on fire. We have had hurricanes in North Carolina. We've had hurricanes in Florida. I mean, a lot of people have lost everything that they've owned. There's not a shortage of people that need help in this country. And charities have ruined that, in my shameless opinion. So, I mean, you're always going to find people that are going to need help, legitimate help, not the government handout, that's all legislated. So I think those are good places to start. If you don't have a beneficiary, you're definitely going to find a lot of people that have need, and they would be very grateful.
Yeah, okay. I hate to cut you off, but we are at the top of the hour. But we'll be back with more with my guest, Leisha West, as we talk about financial services. And we're going to, of course, get into business ownership and leadership in the community. We'll be right back.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
If you like finding out about different things in the paranormal field, such as ghost stories, haunted locations, UFOs, cryptozoology, and much more, well, check out Into the Paranormal on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Videos are posted once a week. Are you a veteran, live in the North Texas area, and looking to buy a house using your VA loan? Well, check out Farouk Khan's website at iconsellhomes.com or email Marcus Weber at marcusweberl@outlook.com. Both can be found linked up on the Talk of the Night website. To call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Leisha West. Now, if you got any questions on the Spreaker, if you go to Spreaker.com, sign up for a free account. You don't have to do a show or anything like that. Follow the show. On the player, there's a little chat bubble. Pop in there, say hi, let me know you're listening and everything like that. Or you can ask a question inside the chat room. Or if you want to call into the show tonight via Skype Talk of the Night, and you can ask my guests a question there. So before the break, we were talking about charities and everything like that, and how the money is not going where it should. And I'll let you elaborate more on your whole thought on what charities are doing and what people really should be doing, because we talked about the fires out in California, the hurricanes that have hit Florida and North Carolina and stuff like that.
I think actually Facebook is a great place to start, quite frankly. A lot of people are posting about different families that they personally know, or people that are 2 or 3 degrees removed that people know of, that they don't have a home, they've lost everything they owned, things like that. I would try to go through someone that you know personally, or a friend of a friend. Someone that you know that you can legitimately verify that they truly are homeless, they truly lost everything, or they're truly in a bad situation. I would just keep all the charity stuff out of it. Even if you go to your local church, or you go to the principal of a school and just say, look, whatever, I've got money I'd like to donate. Who is a low-income family that I can anonymously make their life better? So there's a lot of ways to do that without giving up your name or anything like that. But if you're looking for a charitable donation or something like that, I suppose there's other ways to do it too. But, if your heart's in the right place and you're looking for a beneficiary or something like that, there's a lot of ways that you can do that.
Yeah. Now, of course, I work at the Children's Hospital here in Fort Worth, and tons of people come in with like coloring books, toys for the kids and stuff like that. But rather than it going to a charity or anything like that, or money, it's actual physical stuff for like the kids that are sick or dying or something like that. And it's more direct.
So that's what I would suggest. I would always try to go the more direct, the better you are. And you know that your money is being impactful. It's going to the right place for the right reason as to what you intended it to do, that you're looking to give back or help other people.
Yeah, because I'll give you an example of one time that I donated money to like a children's hospital out in California. I was doing an investigation at a private residence, and of course, doing paranormal investigations, we don't charge for our services. But this person wanted to pay us $300 for investigating their home and get rid of like the darker entity spirit. And when they offered it, I said, don't give it to us. Take it down to the Ronald McDonald House, the Children's Hospital out there, and donate it in our name, our team's name and everything like that. Give it back to the kids, because they're our future. And I'd rather give to something like that rather than something, just a big organization that's going to divvy up that $300 and maybe $1 here, $1 there, and just not going to go to the right place.
Right. Women's shelters is another place. Women's shelters can always use any kind of help, whatever that may look like. Whether that, and a lot of them will give you a list if you go to a women's shelter and find out what they need. So there's a lot of different ways to give back in a very impactful way, and to bypass charities, and to still make sure that your money is giving back to those who really need it, that make a difference, and are very grateful for the help.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's get into the whole thing with veterans here on your website. Veteran Aid Task Force, if I can talk tonight. What is the Veteran Aid and Task Force about, and everything like that?
Well, I formed the Veteran Aid Task Force because I saw a real need with veteran services that the VA could not provide. And in the area that I live in, there's really not a lot of veterans in the Michigan area, at least not in Southwest Michigan. So a few things that we have done in the past, we have provided security for individuals' homes during the funeral. We had a little stint where people were this is just the dirtiest, most evil thing. People were breaking into people's homes during the funeral because, it's published in the paper and everybody's away from the home. Is that the dirtiest thing? And so for veterans, that's one of the services that we provided, is that we just provided security, and all we did was just go and hang out. And there's a small group of us that we would go and the home was secure and taken care of during the time of the funeral. It's small things like that didn't really cost any money. Of course, I live in Michigan, so it tends to snow a lot here. So we have shovels in the back of the vehicles, things like that. We got a list of veterans that are in their home and are not able to leave. So we've gone around and shoveled sidewalks and things. It's all the small things that people need that doesn't cost any money, but work does have to be done, or it should be done. So it's little small things like that just have a group of veterans, and we all just have a big heart for veterans and take care of each other. So that's kind of how I formed the Veteran Aid Task Force.
Yeah, and of course I see a lot of that going on in like disasters and everything like that. It doesn't have to be veterans, but I mean, like out in California, there are people sometimes risking their life and limb and everything like that to help out neighbors get animals out of there, or like during the Hurricane Harvey down in Houston and everything like that, where people were taking boats down there, getting people out, and there is a lot of that good camaraderie around that, where in a time of need, people are going out and help. But one thing I notice about that is people are helping out during disasters, when I think even though there is no disaster, there are people still affected, like you were talking about veterans needing like their place shoveled or anything like that. And if you see somebody that is an older person, I mean, just go up to offer them, like, say their grass is getting really tall and stuff. Go out and help them cut that. It doesn't cost a lot to do that, and it'll brighten up somebody's day. But a lot of people don't see it that way. We're so busy with our everyday lives.
That's true. It just takes a gesture of goodwill to give back. It doesn't necessarily have to cost money, or there doesn't necessarily have to be expense involved. Your time, your effort, your back. But
yeah, of course, with my back the way it is, I can't do that stuff anymore. Like, I mean, there was a time when my back wasn't so bad that we had fires out in California, and I was still living out there. And because I did that wildland firefighting early in the 90s before my Navy days, I still had that training. And I wanted to go out there and actually help. There was a place that I was living down in, out in the country, where with my aunt and uncle, I was helping them out, living on their property and helping them out around there because they were up in age. And somebody in a camper was doing illegal drugs in the hill behind, on another property. There was a hill behind their house, and on the other side of that was a different property. Well, that person was trespassing. Well, their propane tank caught fire and their thing exploded. Well, it took a while for the fire department to get out there because it was rural. So I went out there. I went out there, and just by myself. I took a shovel and all the tools that I knew to use for firefighting. I started by myself cutting a fire line just so that it would not get to my aunt and uncle's property. Just even though my back was hurting, I was starting to cut the fire line just so that way there was some kind of break there between that and other houses. And
Believable.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, a lot of people don't think about that. If you do something for somebody else, like I said, it just can be that little simple act of kindness that helps save other people and other people's property that makes a huge difference.
Well, I can guarantee you, none of the house for the house sitting that we did for the funerals that we sat in on. I mean, obviously, none of those houses got broken into because you had Marines standing fire watch there. So even if you're worried about it, because that is what was going on, it's small things like that. Like, for those that are listening, a lot of people don't even think about that. Like you look in the paper, you know when the funeral of whoever is going to be, you already know that nobody's going to be at the house. What a perfect time to break into a house. I mean, people that are doing that have no conscience anyway, so they don't care if you're going to somebody's funeral. That even happened to the football player, Junior Seau. At his funeral, his house got broken into, and a lot of his memorabilia got stolen. So the point is, it's all the small things. Would you like me to house sit and stay at the house during the funeral? Like, we're happy to do that. And so it's small things like that you don't think about, that you can give back in some way and help people. And it does make a difference. It does make a difference. I'm a big believer in karma, so you can never do enough good in the world.
Yeah, and of course, like me, I try to help everybody over my own needs and everything like that. And sometimes I gotta remind myself that I gotta take some time to myself to focus on myself. I mean, while still helping other people, but I gotta realize that I can't focus all my stuff on helping other people. I gotta take time for myself. Now, you talked about watching for the homes for the funerals and like shoveling snow. Are there other things that the Veterans Task Force helps with?
I would say just a lot of random stuff. We'll get people rides and things like that, every once in a while. People need to go Christmas shopping, grocery store trips, this kind of thing, trips to the doctors and what have you. I'll tell you one thing I've really come to love is every Sunday after church I go visit the nursing home. There's a couple in my area. And I have to tell you, Phil, I look forward to that every week. It is a lot of fun. I love going to the nursing home and visiting with everyone, and they're just so happy and receptive to see you. It's like an eager puppy, that comes to the door when you come home from work. Yeah. And you're just so loved, and they're just so appreciative. And the things that you learn from the conversations and the stories, that is my most treasured time, is Sunday afternoons when I go visiting the nursing home. And I've had a couple of girlfriends that I take with me that have kind of gotten turned on to it as well. But meet a lot of veterans in there. And so I would encourage everyone to at least go to a nursing home, go visiting with everyone. You'll just be amazed at the friendships that you make, the stories that you're going to hear, the wisdom that you get, the lessons you're going to learn. that is just really, really a fun time for me. And so that was kind of an offshoot from the Veteran Aid Task Force, because I went to the nursing homes to find out if there was anything that we could do for veterans or what have you. So it just kind of sprung from there. But that's my most treasured time is Sunday afternoons at the nursing home.
All right, so we got a question in the chat room here. Why is it that military have, I'm just trying to figure out how he's wording this. Why is it the military have women, veterans, and men separated on business terms? Is there a way it could be both together? I mean, I guess with like last night where we were talking about where men have all the men veterans have all these organizations and stuff like that, and the women veterans, like I think my guest last night said there's like the women veterans are a small percentage of veterans, but I think what he's trying to get into is how it could be more equal.
Well, that's a great question. And I would definitely say there's probably a little bit of a segregation. And yes, we're obviously a very small minority in the grand scheme of things. A lot of the organizations, I know Marine Corps League is obviously male and female. You do have some, I just know of a few that are women only. I don't know of any that are male only. That probably wouldn't go over too well. But that's a really good question. I know there's a lot of veteran organizations that are out there, but I don't know that there's any stigma or anything like that.
All right. Well, of course, he said I pretty much phrased it right, so I got the question right. So, speaking of business and everything like that, tell the listeners a little bit how you got started into business. Was it before your military service or after it?
It was after. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I went into financial services, and my first job was a stockbroker for a nationwide brokerage house. And then from there, I went into banking, and so I was a vice president of investments for a couple of large banks. And so I was always kind of in the financial services umbrella. And then I got into insurance and started looking more at the planning side of the house. And so after being in corporate America for several years and seeing all the bureaucracy and all the nonsense and, you know, all the greed and all the unethical activities, I didn't want any part of it. And I knew that if I was independent, that I could do a much better job for my clients and I could master my craft and then do planning the way it should be done. And so I decided to start my own company. So that's what I did.
Okay, yeah, and of course, you talk about the bureaucracy, and you can see everything going on in politics nowadays where the people there in Congress and the Senate and everything like that are not really focused on the people. They're focused on who's going to pay out the biggest amount to their coffers and everything like that, and forget the little people. But they seem to forget that the Constitution says we the people, of course the people being the ones that run things, but they forget all about that. And of course, somebody like myself in 2008, I actually wrote my name in just for myself to be for president of the United States. I actually tried running that way. Of course, I knew it was never going to happen, but I got tired of the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. that was not helping the American people. And like I said, I'm always the kind of person that wants to help the little people and everything like that.
Well, there's no question everybody's tired of it. There's no question about that.
All right, so we got another question here in the chat room, and it goes back to the military service. And the person asks, do they tell you what benefits you are entitled to when you first sign up? And I'll let you answer. And of course, I'm going to mention real quick that I never got told of anything. I got pretty much told what my job would be or what I could do when I was there, but I never got told what I would be entitled to except for the GI Bill. Other than that, never told what I would be entitled to after I got out of the service.
Well, thank you to the listener who asked this question and put a spotlight on this issue, because the answer is a big fat no. You get told enough of the benefits to persuade you to get in. If you need some persuasion or you need some convincing, then they'll tell you a little bit more of the benefits, GI Bill and this and that. But for the most part, absolutely not. And when you get out, you just get your DD-214 and have a nice day. If you did 20, you'll probably get a retirement ceremony. But for the most part, that's it. You're just leaving with the title, or at least for Marines.
They don't tell you anything. I mean,
They
the
don't tell
day
you
that
anything.
Go ahead.
No. They don't tell you anything. You have no direction. You have nothing but a have a nice day and a thank you for your service, and that's it. Then you leave the base and you're like, okay, well, that's it. And you wake up the next day and you're like, wow, okay, I'm really out. You might sleep in, you might not, but that's it. You have no direction, you thing. So unless you're resourceful or you have friends or family members that can give you direction on what you need to do next, you're just stuck. And so, thankfully, I had uncles and family members. I come from a very long lineage of military service, and they told me right away, join the VA. And most military vets don't know this. And so you want to do this right when you get out, because you're broke. More than likely, you're broke. You have no assets, and your medical records are going to be fresh because you just got out. So that's when you want to join the VA. And what happens is that, this is just an example, as time goes by and you don't join the VA, then you're going to get a job, you're going to start getting pay raises, getting promotions, making more money, accumulating more assets. And now to join the VA, they have a means test, and they start looking at your household income. Isn't that so unfair?
Yeah.
They will take into consideration your spouse's income. They'll look at a household income as part of the means test to see what level you're going to qualify for, which is completely unfair. So then they do the means test, and then now you just have to pay to join the VA. Well, why would I pay to join the VA? You might as well just have insurance anyway, which you probably get from your employer. And so these are kind of all the things that you don't know. Then there's a big to-do about the prescriptions, that you may get a break with prescription drugs from the VA. And you might, depending on what the prescriptions are that you're taking and what drug plans are available. But to answer your listener's question, you have no direction whatsoever. So it's really up to you to find someone like me or some of the individuals that are resourceful that I work with to help you determine what all benefits that you're eligible for, and then go from there. And can I just tell you, it is so unbelievable what all benefits are available to veterans that they just don't have a clue, not a clue. And if they did, it would be so life-changing. And so, believe me, it's no accident that the government does not want you to know all of the benefits that you're eligible for.
Yeah, and of course, before we go into the break here, I want to tell you a funny story about my when I left the military service. We pulled right back into port from being on a 6-month deployment, and I had the 2 weeks early leave, so that way I'd never had to come back to the ship. So I had it planned out to when we pulled into port. I had one of those big old boom boxes, and with the cassette tapes, if you're old enough to remember those. But I was actually, I took one of those, and well, actually it wasn't a boom box, but it was like a loud enough cassette player, basically a bigger one. That I took a cassette player. Cassette of Johnny Paychecks, Take This Job and Shove It, and I was playing that and singing it as I was walking down the plank of the ship to leave the Navy for good.
Oh my gosh.
But we're going to get into so much more with my guest, Alicia West, and when we come back, and we'll take more of your questions. If you got a call, feel free to call in. We'll be right back.
Although I know it hurt you, but I just can't follow through. I've got to let go of you. I've got to let go. I've got to let go of you. I got to let go. I've got to let go of you. I've got to let go of you. Got to let go of you. I've got to let go.
When you go to EvaFulton.com and mention Talk of the Night, the first 10 buyers will receive 10% off her book, Welcome to My People Garden. And one lucky caller will get a free soft cover copy of her book. Just click on the link on the Talk of the Night website and it'll take you right to her website. Are you a veteran and want to know about financial services, opening your own business, or just about leadership in the community? Well, connect with Alicia West at westfinancialgroup.com, which is linked up on the Talk in the Night website. Do you want to know about the political party that is for veterans and all the people of the U.S.? Well, check out VPOMN.org or Facebook.com, Veterans Party of Minnesota, which is linked up on the Talk in the Night website.
Yeah, let's go. I ain't the first with the curse, with the thirst that I wanna be better, not worse, man it hurts. I'm on this earth with my words and I put them all together, insert, cause I wanna have worth. Working hella hard till they put me in the dirt. Gonna go far, man, listen to my words. Gonna be a star, man, life's like a blur. When you're working this hard, yeah, you get what you deserve. Yeah, I ain't taking a backseat, I'm passing anybody else who is rapping. I'm nasty, ain't nobody able to catch me. They gasping, they cannot compare, they can't match me. I'm at half speed, I got your girl and she laughing and dancing.
To call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Alicia West, in the last half hour of the show. So if you are on Spreaker, pop in the chat room, say hi, ask a question in there, or call in to the show via Skype, Talking the Night. Feel free to ask anything, my guests and everything like that. And, of course, before the break, we had a question. I just never got around to asking it. But it says, why can't both businesses be the same equal business? Because I feel both men and women should be together in business. I mean, it's going back to like that other question, basically, where like equal pay and stuff like that. And it's getting better. It's just not to, I mean, back in like the 50s, men were receiving more pay than women and stuff like that. And you still see it in the military where some of the men are getting higher pay and pay grades than the women's. What is your thought on that?
Well, you're probably not going to like what my thought is. And I have to start by telling you, yes, men will more than likely get paid more. And do you know why that is?
Why is that?
Phil, women don't negotiate.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, first and foremost, women do not negotiate. I was a hiring manager for 2 banks and an investment bank, and I can tell you, women don't negotiate. So it's kind of like what I said earlier. When you go in and you get a job offer, they start you out at the lowest.
Shoot. Okay, so sorry about that. We lost connection. Let me, I don't know what happened. Something just happened to where I lost connection. Let me see if we can't get my guest back here. Try again. There we go. Yeah, my computer went crazy and acted up. Sorry about that. That's the first time it's happened in a long time where it's lost connection.
Okay. That's okay.
I don't know what went wrong there. It might have been some kind of problem.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're still live. It's just lost connection for a moment. We're back.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll just pick up where I left off. Your last person had asked about the disparity in pay between men and women, and what I was going to say is that, yes, there does tend to be a disparity, and that's because women don't negotiate. So, of course, like I was saying, you give a job offer to a male, and he will immediately start in with the negotiation tactics, and then we'll come up with an amount, and we'll settle on benefits and a salary that everybody can live with. Women are completely opposite. If you give a woman a job offer, she is just so grateful, will accept it right away. I'm so glad to be a part of a team, and I'm going to do a good job for you, and on and on and on. And a lot of women are not that confident. That's been my experience, where they're not vocal, they're not confident enough to speak up for themselves, to say, well, I think that's a good starting point, and then go in and make a case for themselves and go through the negotiation like a man will. And so I could take 2 individuals, give them both the same job offer, and 99.9% of the time, the males will end up with more because they got what they negotiated for. And quite frankly, Phil, that goes for life in general. You're going to get what you negotiate. So women can bark and complain and say that men always get paid more, and I can't disagree. But if you go to any hiring manager, every one of them will tell you, I'm right on the money. Women do not negotiate, and men do. So the next time you hear a woman talk about a man got more pay or this and that, I would challenge you to ask them, well, what did you negotiate? Did you go back to human resources? Did you go back and make a case for yourself? And then you'll see very quickly that normally the woman did not negotiate and the man did. And a lot of women don't understand that. Just because you got a job offer, that doesn't mean that's the end-all, be-all, say-all. That means that's the starting point. Now let's see where you can go from there based on your credentials, quite frankly, based on your negotiating skills. So I have to disagree with that, because a lot of times that is more of what the case is. And you probably haven't heard that before, but that's really a more accurate picture of what goes on when the salaries are settled.
Yeah, and of course, some guys don't even negotiate and everything like that. But I mean, of course, I would always, if I had the experience, I would always say, well, yeah, you're going to start me out with like this, but I got the experience. Let's see about getting higher pay, which there were times that I would get higher pay because I knew exactly what I was doing and everything like that. But
Well,
you're
here's
right,
the
some
thing.
women don't negotiate the pay.
Nothing to negotiate. And here's the thing. If a company has given you a job offer, they want to hire you. They're giving you a job. They want you to work for them. So don't be afraid to negotiate and start in with them. And if it's not money, then ask for more vacation time. Ask for more sick days. Then start trying to increase your benefits. It doesn't have to be a salary increase. There could be an increase in other areas of benefits that you haven't even thought of that they would be happy to negotiate with. So if they can't give you any more, okay, so be it. Then start in with the benefits. But I would also say that they may be also evaluating your negotiation skills. So if you just take the first offer you get and you're just so grateful that you got a job, just understand that company wanted to hire you, or they wouldn't have extended you an offer to begin with. So once you get the offer, it's up to you to see how that's going to look for you financially.
Yeah, and of course, like the place that I work with, I was actually applied for the valet, but because they saw my credentials as far as military service and everything, and I think they did understand a little bit about the discipline and stuff like that the military brings to the table. They offered me because where valet is part-time, $8 an hour plus tips, they offered me a full-time position at $10 an hour. But right now I'm just looking at that as I didn't really negotiate for more because I've never done that kind of work before, but I looked at it as a stepping stone, and I'm always the person that's going to work harder to try and improve myself in the job, whereas some people just don't even, they get the job, even if they negotiate, they get the job and they don't improve on what they are working for.
That's true. Their motivation is just the 1st and the 15th, and I think those kind of employees are very easy to spot.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're running out of time. Let's talk a little bit about your leadership role as a female veteran in the community.
Well, I think it's very important for everybody to get involved, whether you're a veteran or not. I think everybody should be involved in their community to some extent, and just to follow your heart, follow your passion. What are you interested in? What resonates with you? And go from there. But everybody should be involved in their communities. Everybody.
Yeah, and leadership doesn't have to be with somebody that don't know nothing about anything or anything like that. I mean, there are people that are going to be followers, and there's going to be people that are leaders. But, I mean, take like Martin Luther King. I mean, he was a leader in his church even during the time of segregation and everything like that. But he stepped up and became that leader in the community and everything like that. And people need to say, okay, this is what I can do to help people out. Let me step up and help out people.
Well, that's true. If you like senior citizens, go to the nursing home, which you already know I'm a big fan of. If it's vets, if it's children, if it's foster care, just get involved, help and give back in some way. I know everybody's so busy with their lives, but they're busy with just nonsense. Turn the TV off, get off whatever it is, Netflix and all this other stuff. Go do something. Go give back. Go connect with people. Get out in the community.
Yeah. And of course, that's why I do like my show. I like to help people as far as becoming a lead, because there are not many people out there that are in the paranormal community that are willing to help people that have problems around and stuff like that. There's a lot of TV shows, there's teams out there, but they're only doing a small portion, whereas I've been in the field a long time. I've had my first experience with spirits when I was 5 years old. And I started learning at an early age about the different aspects of the paranormal. So even though I've only been in the field for 27 years, I have a lot more experience in that. And I'm taking that experience to get out in the community with this radio show, get the word out there, trying to help people understand and give people different points of views, because there are people that are closed-minded to where they're only got that one point of view and they're told what to believe and stuff like that. And I try to open people's eyes to different points of view, think outside the box, if you will.
Well, I think that goes to, if you're in the community and you're talking and visiting with people and making friends and connecting, then you are going to get those different points of view and broaden your horizon and be a little bit more open to other perspectives.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Trying to think of how to fill this last 7 minutes before, or 6 minutes before I go and talk about what we got coming up. So again, where can people find out about West Financial Group and all the services that you offer?
Well, you can visit my website, which is westfinancialgroup.com. You can also hit me up on Facebook. I'm under Leisha S. West, is my page. And, of course, I'm on Twitter under Leisha West. So those are all good places. I'm easy to find and easy to connect with. I welcome all questions, and I can certainly help out in any way that I can.
All right. And, of course, you mentioned it's not just about veterans that you help, but senior citizens and helping other people plan for retirement and everything like that. And everybody nowadays could use some help, whether they think they can do it all. Like there was a point in my time life where I thought, okay, I can do this myself, and I still get sometimes to that point where I want to do the stuff myself, so that way I learn how to do it. But sometimes there are times that you actually need to break down and ask for help, and it just is not going to happen. You have to actually go out there and do it.
Well, that's true. I'd like to help anybody who thinks they're going to die or retire. And I always say my competition is death, disability, critical illness, and old age. And it's my job to get to folks before my competition does. Yeah.
Before death does. Then it becomes my business in the paranormal field. Sorry, bad joke there.
Well, there you go.
But no, now, of course, one of my listeners asked this of my guests last night, and I know you sent me some pictures. I'm not going to share any of those or really talk too much about them. But about somebody asked my guest last night, did they experience anything of the paranormal while in the service?
Oh, that's such a good question. You're welcome to share my pictures if you would like. I had some paranormal friends that pointed that out to me because I wasn't mindful or didn't really even notice it. I can't think of anything when I was active duty. I can tell you that there was always a lot of people around, so I never really had a point where I was like alone or by myself, not that I could really think of. So I didn't really experience anything that stands out as far as paranormal when I was active duty. But again, I was an instructor at Marine Combat Training, so I was leading a 500-person battalion, and so I was never by myself. So if something stood out or what have you, I wouldn't have even it wouldn't have even fazed me at that time because I was focused on other stuff. So no, I would have to say no.
Yeah, and of course, like I mentioned it last night that, of course, when you're in the service, you're so focused on the task at hand, and that even during my service, being able to see and communicate with spirits, during the whole time of being in the service, it pretty much shut down and everything like that. Now, I did have probably some experiences when I got into the older parts of town, like Trieste, Italy, Corfu, Greece, and stuff like that. When I would make port calls and see the history there, I might have seen some things, but for the most part, it was always focused on the job while on board ship, and then while out on porter call, it was more about enjoying the sights and drinking, of course, what us Navy guys do. But yeah, it was more focused on what the job was at hand. So I just wanted to ask that question of you. All right.
I will tell you, I had a lot of friends. I heard a lot of stories, and I had a lot of friends that did, but I personally did not.
Okay. So I want to thank my guest, Leisha West. Again, I'll let her give out her information one more time. And also, you can find her website linked up on the Talk of the Night website. And you can contact her. And, of course, I'll link up her Facebook page and everything like that for you people to find her that way as well.
My website is westfinancialgroup.com.
All right. And for those listening to the show, I'm sorry about that. I just had a little short connection problem, but we got it fixed and everything back. Now, of course, tomorrow night, Veterans Week continues. We're going to be talking about the political aspects of veterans in the political party with the Veteran Party of Minnesota, and we're going to talk about veterans in the political party, not just in Minnesota, but across the country and everything like that, what they're doing to try and help veterans and everyday people in this country to get a voice heard in Washington, D.C., rather than just the standard Republicans or Democrats that are in there that have never served a day in the service or anything like that. They just don't know what it's like to be on that lower end or a veteran at that aspect of things. And, of course, Friday night is Friday Night Open Lines Veterans Edition. Now, of course, on Friday night, we're going to talk about open up the phone lines where you, the listeners, can call in, share your stories, experiences, or even ask a question about the paranormal or anything, because I do have a lot of experience. I've become a jack of all trades. So I can answer questions on dating and relationships. I can answer questions on health because I've had EMT training and stuff like that from firefighting. So I got a wide range of knowledge and things, but most of my experiences in the paranormal. But talking about the Veterans Edition, I'm going to open up the phone lines where the veterans can call in and share their stories and experiences of their time in the service as well. And let the regular public also hear some of those stories that they might not know of because they've never experienced time in the military. So again, thank you, Alicia, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you on and everything like that. The people in the chat room are telling you thank you for your service and everything like that, and they love the show.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, and of course, once again, tomorrow night we're going to be talking about the political party of Minnesota, Veterans Party of Minnesota, and of course, Friday night open lines. Now, before we end the show tonight, I want to mention next week on Talking the Night, I am just going to run rebroadcast because next week is Thanksgiving, and I know a lot of people are going to be leaving out of town and everything like that. So I'm going to just run rebroadcast, but I will be back the following week. So I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show tonight, and please join me tomorrow night when we talk about the Veteran Party of Minnesota and politics in this country. Until tomorrow night, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking the Night.